Alright, let's get into it. It's the haul for this week, a significantly smaller one, since I'm in my usual space here. Sorry, burp right there. I got a bunch of comics and a couple paperback novels. So, let's get into this. Why don't we start with the one indie for this week? Predator Life and Death number 4. This ends the Predator storyline for this Life and Death event. But don't worry, next week Prometheus number 1 is supposed to come out. So I'm excited. I've been really enjoying this series and would love to talk about its conclusion in Comic Book Throwdown this week. Next we got Becky Cloonan's take on Punisher with Punisher number 2. And Punisher number 1's okay. Look, the N and the R are out, so instead of diner it says die. How adorable. Page through this and it looks interesting. But you need to actually, Marvel editorial, you need to actually let people swear and actually keep the swearing in. Because that is extremely irritating in my opinion. Next, a book that might be number 1 again. Moon Knight number 3 by Jeff Lemire. Oh man, I'm digging this series, but I don't know. We got some good stuff coming out this week. From the rest being the DC Rebirth one-shots. Why don't we start out with what I have? I'm looking forward to quite a bit. We got Batman Rebirth one-shot. Now I'm picking up Batman in print. Snyder's still on the book, but we're slowly switching over, I think, to the way it's going to be from now on. Next, Superman Rebirth number 1 with Peter Tomasi. One of my favorites from Batman and Robin. Next, Green Arrow. I've never read a Green Arrow comic before. I haven't. So, I've read him in other things, but I've never read a Green Arrow comic. So that'll be interesting. And then lastly, Green Lantern's Rebirth. So, looking forward to this. Jeff Johns writing this because Green Lanterns isn't complete without him on there. So, let's get into the paperbacks. The first one, I bought these all for $1, and I found this, and I couldn't pass it up. How It'll End by Ralph Blodgett. And I'm like, what on earth is this? So I'm paging through it. It was written when we had the gasoline shortage or whatever in the 70s. And talking about a bright future. Of course, we hit a recession again. And again. And it's looking like we're going to have another one again. So I want to read this for some perspective. Yeah. So that's interesting. Next, I upgraded a copy I had. I bought the first X-Wing book, Rogue Squadron. My copy is really beaten up. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I pick this up? Because these were never released in hardcover, so I want to have the nicest looking paperbacks I could possibly have. So, yeah. Got another Rogue Squadron copy. I'll be reviewing that probably next year at this point. But stay tuned for my next Star Wars review, which will come out on Monday. And lastly, one of my favorite books of all time. It's a very controversial book because, well, people don't agree with it, and God forbid if a critic doesn't agree with it, then it's shit on immediately. And that's Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged. One of these days, I will do a very in-depth video discussing the theories in Atlas Shrugged. But for those of you who don't know, Atlas Shrugged is a book about what happens when the middle class disappears. Sort of what we're having now, to a degree, where the middle class is slowly shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and mediocrity is what's taking place. No, there's no one who's actually tries to work. They're just kind of lazy. So it takes place. The main characters are all in the upper class. The Dagny Taggart, who's my favorite character, She and her brother own a railroad. This was written at a time when railroads were really big, and it takes place slightly in the future, I would suppose. Another person, Hank Reardon, he owns a steel plant. And Francisco D'Anconia owns a mining company that mines copper. So all these people, it's how they change over the beginning of their recession, how the whole world falls apart. It's very interesting. It's a really long book, but it's a really, really, really good book. It's very different. It has some of my favorite antagonists, they seem very modern, like how people are now, so to speak. And I don't mean to sound like an old person, like, oh, just young people, blah, blah, blah. No. Like, those people that they're incredibly passive-aggressive to the point where it's cringeworthy. Yeah, so Atlas Shrugged. I'm trying to find this in hardcover as well. So, yeah, check it out. It's a really, really, really good book. However, this paperback, for instance, is over almost 1,100 pages. So yeah, that's my haul for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna really enjoy Comic Book Throwdown. I'm gonna read all this real quick. Well, not the books, but the comics after this, and I will film that and release it tomorrow for you guys. Because officially, I now don't have Fridays off anymore. I got another day at my job, which means more money for Gen Con and comics. So anyway, guys, have a nice day and stay tuned. There's a lot of fun stuff coming up.